Are you looking to build influence? Or maybe to drive more traffic? But bottom line, you want to change the game. You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Business Building Book Club. We're going to give you the tools you need to succeed, both online and in person. Brought to you by Coach Molly and Three Pines Leadership. Hey, visibility hackers, and welcome to this episode of the Business Building Book Club. I'm your host, Coach Molly from visibilityhacking.com, and today's guest, I'm so excited, is on the show today. So I met today's guests in a business building group that I'm part of, the super secret society that I mentioned here and there. If you are new to the visibility hacking movement, I'm full of surprises. Anyways, today's guest is not only a medical doctor, an ER doctor. So stress and bad health is something this guy gets to see all the time. And he's building a movement of people who are taking control of their health. They are taking back control of their lives. And I think what he's doing is not only going to change the world for the people who take his program and who watch his webinar and go through his program, but he's actually going to change the world for the better, because when we take care of our health as individuals, that's going to have the ripple effect for the rest of our families, for generations possibly. And so it's my absolute pleasure to throw you guys into the interview I just had with Dr. Richard Kelley. So here we go. Enjoy.
Yeah. Obstacles, just about just about everything. Nailing down what I wanted to address in the world, and from my standpoint, it's always been, I've been so interested in the fitness foundation of health. And I think that that's something that that we've gotten away from. When I'll be 60 this summer. And when I was a kid, we had recess, and part of recess was, or PE was, having to go through, I forget what they called it. Arnold Schwarzenegger was involved in it, but it was like the American Fitness Foundation, thing that they implemented for kids. And I think a lot of that has gone away. But, at the time you had to do a certain number of push-ups and sit-ups and things like that. And though, I don't do a lot of that stuff nowadays, I still think that the foundation of health, a lot of it has to do with movement. And so, as I went to, I started out in medical school, heading down the road to become a surgeon. And then I transitioned into ER medicine. And, in both of those fields, you see so many people who, you see the ramifications of people who have not taken care of themselves. And so it just, it hit me early on, that, getting back to paying attention to your nutrition and making exercise and fitness a part of your life was, in my estimation, important. And so, I guess to that's kind of a long-winded way of getting to the obstacles for me have been who am I trying to help? And, that part of that, figuring out the webinar thing is, as choosing your avatar and who was your target client or your audience. And that's been somewhat difficult for me, because I want to impact everyone. And I think that that's something that a lot of us, who are trying to do something online, and not just to make money. I think most of us want to impact people and to help a certain segment of the population, or everyone. And, as Russell and everybody else under the sun will tell us, that if you if you try to serve everyone, you serve no one. And so that's been one of the biggest struggles. Who is my avatar? And I've narrowed that down. For one thing, I've got a big interest in weight related pre and type 2 diabetes. And so that's kind of where I have landed, because I really feel like we have we've been misled, even from an educational standpoint, in medicine. I think that there are a lot of forces that are misleading, where the management of that particular lifestyle disorder stands. And so anyway, those are some of the obstacles that I've really struggled with, are just who. And so, I think that, just figuring out that message is really one of the biggest obstacles that I've faced. But I think that I'm there. So, anyway, anything else that,
I'm okay. So I think what you're doing is really fantastic. One of the things I do out in the world pre-COVID is I work with children in recreation, and we do physical literacy. We teach those foundational movement skills, because at the young age, like under age 12, if children aren't developing those foundational movement skills, like running and throwing and kicking and jumping, they are not going to develop into lifelong physically active individuals. And
Right.
We know how important that physical activity is. But I can see in my own life, I'm probably half your age, and seeing the reduction in what physical education looks like for kids, and what that looks like once you become an adult. You lose any kind of education there is to be had about living healthy. We talk about mental health a lot, but we don't talk about our physical well-being and in relation to fitness. We always think fitness means you have to be this person with a six-pack, and you have to be jacked, and you have to worry about your macros, and you have to worry about all of those strength training. But it's a lot earlier than that. There's a few more baby steps that we can be taking in order to take control of our life.
Absolutely.
And I know with diabetes, for sure, my father, he's passed away, but previously, about 10 years before he passed away, he had a heart attack. He was a heavyset guy. He enjoyed his French fries, and he liked watching TV and not really walking around and being as active as he could have been. And so we found out that he had to have a triple bypass. But on top of that, the actual biggest thing that he found out was that he had type 2 diabetes. And it was,
Right.
He had to go to the courses at the hospital, and he had to relearn how to eat. And he took that on with full stride. He completely changed his entire diet, his entire lifestyle. And it was an absolute inspiration for myself at the time. I was in my late teens, and it was the first time anyone had ever told me about nutrition and healthy eating and how to take care of my body. So you're helping people do that again, and you're helping them take control of their lives and get back to a health that's going to allow them to really thrive in whatever it is they like to do with their time. That's pretty cool.
Well, that's definitely my hope, is to help a lot of people along those lines. I think it's difficult because the conversation regarding weight has become political in some ways, and you have to be careful and sensitive in terms of how you even deliver your message, and kind of back to obstacles. That's one of the challenges that I think anyone who's trying to get a message out there, specifically through Facebook, for example, you almost can't be straightforward with a message that in regard to weight or some sort of disorder, which may or may not be the result of lifestyle choices, or you just have to be really, really careful, and you have to decide how you're going to go about getting your message
Yeah.
advertised. And so that's, that has been one of the obstacles in regard to webinar. And it's one of the reasons that I think that as I move forward with this, I'll probably try to focus what I'm doing on YouTube as opposed to Facebook, and maybe be a little less direct in what I put out on Facebook in terms of just how I say what I'm trying to accomplish. And so, but I mean, I think that, like your father, making that change it's not easy, because there's so many things that are stacked against people from a nutrition standpoint that most people don't even realize that they're facing. And so, for people to make a conscious effort to move in the opposite direction and to figure out how to make that happen is impressive. So, but
it's really interesting that like certain platforms will allow you to talk about certain things, and the audience of those platforms will engage with those topics in either a positive way or a negative way. And I can totally see how talking about weight and talking about your health in that way will set off certain audiences on Facebook, for example, where they're not actually listening to the overall message that you're sending out. They're just seeing, oh, you're talking about fat, you're saying fat means bad, so therefore your solution is a crappy solution, instead of really listening and going, wait, he's not talking about body shaming. He's actually talking about re-engaging with your health. He's actually on our side. He's not saying fat is bad. He's saying unhealthy is bad. And let's redefine what that means.
Sure.
So
go ahead. So.
I was just going to say, what are your thoughts on how you're engaging on YouTube versus how you're going to be engaging on Facebook?
I think that certainly, and one of the things that I really enjoy about Facebook is just being able to. I like filming videos and editing them and inserting, my pictures of regarding whatever topic it might be, whether it involves talking about the food pyramid or different types of workouts, things like that. And I like the process of just editing stuff and throwing stuff out there. And so I think from looking at the two different platforms, I tend to use Facebook as an avenue just to talk about things that I'm doing from a fitness standpoint. I might do. We've got a garage gym, or we put our cars outside and turn that space into a gym, and so that's where I do a lot of my filming. And so a lot of times I'll work out, and then I'll just, since the blood's flowing, that tends to get me in the mode of doing videos. And so, maybe I might just talk about a particular exercise that I think is useful. And I tend to put that type of video content out on Facebook, with the hope that organically I'll have enough content out there that, maybe people will find what I'm doing one way or the other. On YouTube, specifically, it comes down to ads, running ads to your webinar. And so, and one of the roadblocks, or one of the challenges that I think I ran into right off the bat with my Type 2 to Health webinar, and I got some input about it because I was getting getting people who were booking calls with me, but it just wasn't converting. And I had somebody take a look at it who told me, I really feel like you're just scaring the daylights out of people, because my webinar talks a lot about the long-term manifestation of type 2 diabetes. And so, I'm having to alter I'm having to alter my webinar and make it a little more positive, and a little less doomsday.
Yeah.
But by the same token, to kind of get back to, talking about, your dad and people who have coronary or vascular disease because of type 2 diabetes. One thing about type 2 diabetes and weight is that it's so insidious that people tend to have underlying changes that are happening over the years. And it can be such a slow process without a lot of external manifestation of the disease until something happens, until somebody has a heart attack, or until their kidney function starts to be altered. And so, that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about in my webinar, but I think I went a little farther that direction than maybe was appealing to the population at large. So, that's one of the things that I'm trying to alter. It's walking that a little more positive.
Yeah, walking that tightrope between pushing them away from pain and towards pleasure and finding that balance. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So
have you been following Russell's framework to the T, or have you been modifying parts of the framework?
Yes. I have for $7. For $7, I bought the perfect webinar template, and I try to I try to follow this as closely as I can. I just finished listening to Traffic Secrets through Audible in my car, and Russell is just, as you know, he's just brilliant. And he is, and I think people tend to use terms like that. He's genius, or calling people genius or brilliant or whatever, but he really is. I think that this information and this framework that the perfect webinar came from, this is so ingrained and second nature to him. That, and we know that it works, so many people use this framework to get their message out there and to build their webinars on. And so I try to follow it as close as I can. But to be honest with you, I don't, I don't know that I understand every step to the extent that maybe I need to really implement it the way Russell would. I mean, I would love to be able to sit in a room with him or sit down beside him and just say, help me knock this out, but anyway, but yeah, I definitely try to follow this, and determining what the 3 secrets are that make sense for this. It is kind of a challenge, but I think I've arrived at 3 that makes sense for what I'm trying to do. So we'll see.
Yeah. So I love that you're following the process of figuring out who your who is, like really getting deep and dirty into who that is, because you can't sell water to everyone. You need to be speaking to someone specifically so that big domino makes sense, so that those 3 secrets make sense. Because one character that you could be speaking to might absolutely need all of the doomsday talk, but another avatar you might have might actually need that softer approach, that softer hand of let's do this together. And then you also are on this multi-platform journey as well, where you're able to show a certain part of your journey as the attractive character on your Facebook profile and say, hey, following this path, putting in the work isn't hard. Watch me do it every day. Hey, check out my workout. Come be accountable. Let's have this journey together. And then they can also find you on these other platforms where you keep showing up in their ads and going, wait, I've seen him before. He's approachable. He's relatable. He's smart. He's a doctor. I should listen to this webinar. And then they'll ascend into your world. And it's what an awesome amount of work that you're doing with all of this.
Well, it's throwing mud at the wall, I think, Molly, and one of the things that I've heard Russell say in his videos, one in particular, he talked about being able to look at a group of people or meet a group of people and hear what they were trying to accomplish and everything. And he said, I'm able to really kind of determine, he said, I've got a really good idea about who is going to be successful based on what they, what they're telling that they're trying to accomplish. And, he said it's the people that fall in love with the process of marketing that I know are going to be successful. And I think that what I've kind of learned in this process, because I stumbled into Russell's world in July of 2018. I know where I was. It was one of those historic pivotal moments, in my life, like where were you when when we put a man on the moon or whatever, but I was on a treadmill in Hawaii, and I came across Grant Cardone interviewing Russell, and Russell was talking about his free plus shipping, his for expert secrets, for his book. And once I decided I wanted to be a part of that world, and I joined ClickFunnels and everything, and I thought, this is going to happen. It's 2 Comma Club here in 6 months or what. Well, that was it's almost been 3 years now. But I think what I have determined and what I kind of get, because I don't know that I would have, I don't know that I would have said, yeah, I'm somebody who loves the market. I just want to do this marketing thing and just enjoy the whole process and, just kind of let it evolve. We all want to try to make something happen really fast. And, but it's been about 3 years of trying different things and being in different groups and meeting people like you. And I think I have come to really enjoy the process of knowing that, for one thing, there's no going back. I mean, I don't feel like I could quit if somebody said, you've got to stop doing this, you're not getting anywhere. I don't know what I would do. And so, but beyond that, it's the 3 feet from gold thing that that I think when people are trying to make anything happen, but specifically for us who are trying to do something online, we don't know how close we are to making something happen and making that breakthrough. And so I think I've gotten more comfortable with this idea that, if I just keep putting out videos, and if I just keep tweaking this webinar, and if I just don't quit, something's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but it's also back to, coming at it from a standpoint of knowing that my end goal has everything to do with impacting a huge number of people who need this intervention that, that I know is not as difficult. It is not as, I won't say it's not as difficult. It's not as daunting as some people may believe that it is. They just haven't been through those steps that get them to the other side. And so it kind of reminds me of what I met an airline pilot working in the ER along 10, 15 years ago, and he came in early in the morning with a kidney stone, and he was in a lot of pain, and we gave him medications and everything, and he was a commercial airline pilot, and so we gave him medication to take his pain away. And while while his pain was dissipating, he said, he kind of breathed a sigh, and he was like, I just could not do what y'all do. And I thought, oh my gosh, I could not sit up in the front seat of a big jumbo jet and, be responsible for 200 passengers, taking them across an ocean or across the country or whatever. And so, it really is, it doesn't matter what you happen to do, we all have this thing or things that come more easily to us, and we know how to accomplish and know how to do. But giving that information to somebody who's trying to do it and thinks it's impossible, that's the goal. So
yeah.
Anyway,
so is your webinar, do you do your webinar live or is it pre-recorded?
No, you know what, I have the webinar that I'm working on right now will just be an auto webinar. Now, I know Russell says to do them, I just need to spend a year doing it every week, and I just haven't driven down that road. And now, having said that, I'm sure if I did that, or if anyone does that, you're bound to get better at it, and you're bound to pick up steam, and people jump on board. I don't know, maybe if I arrive at a webinar that I'm happy with, which I'm in the process of that. I'll tell you what I'm about to do, which is kind of one of the things that I've realized I am actually following kind of a challenge protocol. And because, one of the books that I wrote, The Fitness Response, I have kind of a fitness philosophy and process. And that's something that I am building into my Type 2 to Health program. And so I think that people are, rather than promoting a course, I think people tend to be more receptive to a challenge, as opposed to, I think courses in a way bring people back to, oh my gosh, I've got to study something, or I'm going back to school. And so anyway, so that's, I think that my webinar is morphing that direction now, and part of it will certainly be automated, because that just seems to make sense, especially one of the things, I've taken so many things from all of these different people that are out there in the ClickFunnels world that we're all in, and one of the things that Dan Henry has said is that, if you're doing, there's so many things that can go wrong with a live webinar. And, this idea of getting it right once and having it pre-recorded, I like that idea. And I've done some webinars where I spoke for 10, 15 minutes, and the microphone was off, and nobody, so there are definitely some technical challenges that I think anybody trying to do live webinars face. And so at least recording it and putting it up as an evergreen webinar, I know what I've got.
Yeah.
And so I'll probably steer that direction.
And are you able to get your decent analytics off of a pre-recorded webinar, so you know what to tweak and where to move it and where people are reacting and not?
Well, I have I've worked with Alaric Heck's group, his ad outreach program, and they've helped me with some of that, but it's complicated. Yeah. It's definitely complicated, and it's not something that I can't say that I have my finger on the pulse of how all of that works. And so that's a whole different thing. And
So you're mostly watching just conversion then. You're watching numbers in and how many people are moving forward.
Generally speaking. So, and and I learned the last time, this webinar that I was talking about, where maybe I was striking fear into the hearts of people who were watching the webinar. One of the things that I realized was that, I could tell based on some of the ads that I was running, which ones were leading certain groups to make their way all the way through the webinar, and then certain ads and the demographics that I could see within the Google Ads platform. You're able to look at, you're able to see which groups are resonating with your message. And so, but it's definitely there's some art and science behind it. And I've still got a lot to learn in that department for sure. So, but like to say, if I can just, I'm working on my type 2 to health webinar right now. And if I can just end up with a webinar that I'm happy with, then I can play with, running ads to it on YouTube and just see, where it goes. I definitely need help with somebody interpreting what's going on there for sure. So.
Well, just like in medicine, you have to take a team approach to success in business. So you've already mentioned that you have help doing your ads and stuff like that. I know that you're in Catherine Jones's program as well, helping you build that movement of people. What other people or experts or communities do you have behind you, giving you the resources you need to make this thing catch on fire?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I think part of it is just hopefully organic, being on your book club, and because I know you're very visible, and I know that there are a lot of eyeballs that are your direction for sure, so but I think that groups like Catherine's and everybody that I've come in contact with, like I love the idea that we're all doing different things, but we're able to engage in groups like Catherine's. I've been with I've been in Liz Benny's accelerator group, and I learned a ton of stuff from Liz, and so right now I'm in Pedro Deo's challenge group, and so I think that I'm veering off course in terms of your question, in terms of who some of it is the hope that the things that I'm writing, in my book, Well, Fitness and Power for Life, and this anthology book that I got to do with Rob Kosberg and the other authors in his group. I'm relying on the hope that there will be some organic push, but I think the reality is that it's a mix of things. It's certainly having somewhat of an ad budget to put behind a webinar, and past that, I think I'm getting off track in terms of
No worries. So, okay, if we want organic, then we need to tell people how they can hang out and watch your webinars. So drop all the links. Tell us how my people can become your people. How can they get into your world?
They can visit Richard Kelley with an EY, richardkelleymd.com. for my personal website. That leads to type2tohealth.com. And that takes people to my webinar. I also have a free ebook that teaches people how to eat in an intuitive ketogenic manner, and that is at type2tohealth.com /ketotivity. That's spelled KETUITIVITY, I believe. And so, but my website, richardkelleymd.com, leads to most of those things. And anyway.
Yeah, awesome. Well, before we wrap up, any last words for our listeners at home?
I think depending on what they're trying to accomplish, whether because I know a lot of your followers are trying to be more visible in their own right. I think I don't know. Let me ask you a question. As far as like the people that follow you, what do you think that their biggest struggle happens to be? Do the people that are following you, do you find that they are people who are struggling to put themselves out there just because they're watching you to learn how to be more visible, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So I have two worlds of people. I have people who are starting their businesses, they're just getting off the ground and they want to be everywhere all the time. So they're struggling for that seamless visibility.
Right.
And then I also have business owners who are doing fantastic. They're devoting most of their time to running the business. And now they want to have control over the marketing side of it. So they want to be able to hand it off to VAs. So understanding how do we systematize visibility? How do we hand it off to our VAs so that our business owners actually run that part of their business? They don't have to hand it off to an agency. They don't have to give away part of their branding. They don't have to partner with anyone and give away parts of their hard worked business. But so it's a mix of both of those. But it's all about people who want to change the world. That is the big important part. So how do we change the world? By finding that passion inside of us, getting in front of those cameras, being visible. Because when you attract people to you as the attractive character, because you know the change you want to bring into the world and you're doing the actions to do that. How do we get people to follow you? How do we get people to start buying from you? So that's my world. Those are my visibility hackers.
Gotcha. So I think the main thing that I would leave with anyone is just don't quit, because I think people who are trying to do some semblance of what we're all trying to accomplish, to create something viable online that can be delivered out into the world to help other people, which simultaneously empowers us financially and things like that. I think it really comes down to just not quitting, because I think for most of us, there was some impetus that brought us to this place where we made the decision that it was something that we wanted to try to accomplish. And it's not easy. And I think that because there's trial and error, and there are hills and valleys, and this is just something that I don't think for most people just happens overnight. You step up to the plate and take a swing and knock a home run. It certainly didn't happen, that it didn't happen in Russell's case. It took years and years for him and everybody on his team to build ClickFunnels. And and just, going back to listening to him talk about some of the potato gun stories, and how Colette was working while he was wrestling, and trying to figure out how to create an online business. I'm sure that there were years that went by in his life that just seem like, is this ever going to happen? And so I think it's easy to look at somebody like Russell and just go, well, gosh, I mean, that just, this has probably always been easy for him. And I think that the truth is that it takes a lot of effort and a lot of stick-to-itiveness and perseverance. And if we can all just kind of hang in there and keep swinging the bat, keep putting yourself out there, keep creating content, putting yourself out there from a standpoint of video or blogs or whatever, eventually something's going to happen. And so anyway.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute blast to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me. So I love watching your videos. I love watching your content, and I think you're doing awesome stuff. And I'm very honored that you would even ask me onto your program. So.
Oh, well, I am loving hanging out with all of the insiders, but most importantly, I've been on this little thing the last few weeks, talking to as many doctors as I can, because man, you guys have worked your butts off to get where you are in your professional world, and seeing the way that doctors go into the business world with a completely different mindset, be them medical doctors or psychologists or just academic PhDs. Like it's an impressive skill set you guys have, and I'm excited to shine some light on the work that you guys are doing. So
well,
thank you for all your work.
Thank you.